The aim of establishing the prison institution in Nigeria is to provide a rehabilitation and correctional facility for people who have violated the rules and regulations of the society. Now, in practice, achievement of this aim has been a mirage, and occasioned by prison congestion, several attempts have been made to decongest the correctional centers, but none has yielded the desired results. Now, in view of this, we'll be talking about this, and we have in the studio Dr. Theophilus Abba, the Director of Programs, Daily Trust Foundation, to talk to us about the recent feat, if you like. I would say is a milestone for the foundation, where it secured the release of quite a number of inmates, and he'll be talking to us about what prompted the foundation to make that move. So thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak this morning, Doctor.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. Well, I mean, we had the Minister of Interior, Olubunmi Tunji-Ojo, talks about how we are in excess of over 30,000 inmates in our correctional facilities, 263 correctional centers across the country, meant to accommodate about 50,000 inmates. But here we are talking about over 80,000. How bad is the situation really?
Well, if you go to a correctional center and you see the condition of the inmates, you know that the situation is not good. It's very bad. I remember just last week on Friday, I was at the correctional center in Lafia, and the inmates that we had to support by paying their fines, so that they can go home. I saw their condition. It wasn't really palatable. There was one that had rashes all over his body. A very young boy, and even when, we told him, well, we paid your fine, you are going home, he didn't smile. He didn't smile, and the thing touched me. I shook hands with him, he didn't smile. And there were others like that, he didn't smile. So you can...
It wasn't an exciting...
No, they were not excited. He was not excited. It's like, no emotions at all. He must have passed through a very serious trauma to such an extent that even when he was told he was leaving, and when he said, okay, I'll give you money to transport yourself back. And, the place was crowded, and with the crowd that I saw, I felt that the number that we had paid for to be released was too insignificant. Because, you see these young men, so many of them, is wasting away. Use that word, wasting away, because they feel oppressed mentally and physically, feel really oppressed. And it wasn't a very palatable situation. When I returned home, I was telling myself, the worst thing that can happen to a man is to go to prison. If you entered a prison and came out, you will not be the same again, no matter what. Because mentally, you are no longer what you should be as a human being. It's a very bad situation. And you see, when you talk about prison decongestion, it didn't start today. I remember when Michael Andwaka was Minister of Justice, not even the Interior Minister, when he was Minister of Justice, there was this massive move to decongest the prisons. And you see, a lot of agencies of government, a lot of NGOs were encouraged to bring proposals for the decongestion of prisons. But you see, this thing is not expressly done as we think, because most of those who constitute the majority in prisons are awaiting trial inmates. And when you talk about awaiting trial inmates, why are they awaiting trial? Because the justice system, the criminal justice system in Nigeria has very serious issues. When you talk about the value chain, you talk about maybe lawmaking, you talk about the police, then you talk about the court system, then you talk about the prisons. Now, there are serious issues with this value chain. I'll give you an example. There was a young man that we secured his release from Kefi prison. What was his offense? You know, he worked at a logistic company, and the police went there to raid, I mean, what they call some criminals in that place. So one of the policemen used his baton to break the mirror of that boss, of the company where he worked. And he now said, you've broken our mirror. What are we going to do? And they were going on a journey. What are we going to do? He said, follow me. So this young man followed the police officer to the police station in Maraba. When they got there, you know, the policeman reported the young man to the DPC. This guy was, preventing arrest. That was one of the touts, and we didn't arrest him, but now he was preventing us from arresting other people. They threw him into detention. And after about 48 hours, he was taken to Kefi. You know, so I mean, I said, look, this was looking like, something that was not real
drama,
to me. You know,
if it's not
so
real.
he was taken to Kefi, and he was there until his people knew about it. Say, no, this is not good. Let's do something. You have to rush here and there.
And oftentimes we hear people get missing, unknown to their families. They are in prison.
Some of them are in prison, and you know. So you see, the reason why many people are in prison I'm not saying that people don't commit crimes, but it's because of the way the police I don't know whether the right word to use is misuse their powers, because the police have a lot of powers. You know, because when you go to a court of law, it's what the police tells the judge that the judge will work with. Police reports, and you discover that most of the reports, suspects don't write their own statements. The policeman will write it for you and ask you to sign. And I don't know why the system is, operational in Nigeria, where somebody writes a statement for you and you sign. And when you get to court, that statement stands. Because in other parts of the world, you are supposed to write your own statement.
With your lawyer beside you.
With your lawyer beside you. But here, police will write whatsoever, they'll beat you and ask you to sign. And then you have to sign.
Doctor, you already mentioned, the abuse of power. We are seeing it. Like I mentioned earlier, there was someone close that I know firsthand witnessed what you just mentioned, things like that. And people outside will not really know the depth of what is happening until you visit these correctional centers to see these things. And majority of situations where you see the innocent or the person that with the most, menial sins or crime that they commit are being put in the same correctional center with hardcore criminals. So what are the things that, as someone who, is part of a foundation that is all about helping the people in need, what are the things that you feel that the government needs to put in place in order to at least give these people that are waiting for trial another place that they'll feel a bit safer, a bit more comfortable, since you are a suspect until proven guilty?
Okay, now the first thing I would mention is about investigation. Now, if anyone is arrested for a kind of criminal offense, the police must do a thorough investigation, and the investigation must prove that the person actually committed the offense, and they must do it quickly. You see, if an investigation is not conducted and you put somebody in detention, and you are saying, okay, you are still doing investigation 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, or we cannot keep him here, take him to prison, and then he's just there. The investigation is not completed. When you go to court, maybe at times some some policemen, prosecutors will not even come to court. They will say, okay, this date, this inmate is to be taken to court. It's the day of his trial. When you get to court, the case is mentioned and the prosecutor is not there. Now, the major is there is no thorough investigation. And even when investigations are conducted, you see, it's wishy-washy. At times, you go to court with your investigation, and the judge will say, what is this? There's no evidence. Well, I'll go and do another one. Then they will go. And then the worst case is that a police officer may be handling a case. Before he completes his investigation, he may be transferred from that place to another place. Maybe you are in Abuja, you are transferred from Abuja to Akwa Ibom. Now, you cannot take the file to Akwa Ibom. You drop the file. Then a new person may be assigned. If the inmate is lucky, a new person may be assigned to the case. If he's not lucky, nobody is assigned. You understand? So when you go to court, they will call the case. No police officer is there to say, well, I'm the one handling this case. Then his people, if he has people who are active, they will start running around. What do we do? They go to the police. Our case, blah, 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 blah. Then you have to now begin to bribe for another officer to be allocated to do the investigation. Now, maybe the first person that did the investigation had collected a lot of material evidence, that is ought to have been used to do the. But the new person has to start all over again.
Yeah, so
and you can imagine how long
all these drugs.
It drags on. So you have so many people in prison who have.
But while all of this is going on, what's the structure that we have in place? Just like Sumaya said, do we have a structure that says, okay, these people are awaiting trial, should not be mixed with people who are already convicted?
No, I think in prisons, we have the medium and maximum, prisons. Those who are hardcore criminals, I think they are kept separately, from those who are maybe common thieves and all this and all that. But maybe at some point, I don't know the compartment in the prison so well. At some point, they mix and they visit one another. Because I know some person, I'm going to so and so wing, you go and see somebody there or something like that. It happens. But I'm feeling that now it's not. My own concern is the length of time that somebody awaits. Trial. That is what bothers me so much, because when you talk about management of the prisons, I think the prison officials, they know better.
Should we blame that on the court proceedings, or should we blame that on the number of judges that we have?
No, that's why I was talking about the value chain. For instance, you see, the judge cannot decide a case until he has a clear, police report and evidence to know whether or not the person is guilty. And as long as the police don't do what they ought to do, it will become difficult for the judge to decide. So, like I was giving you an example.
Why don't they dismiss the case then? If the police
now, if it's a criminal case, for instance, if it's a criminal case, maybe somebody was killed. You just can't dismiss the case. Just can't dismiss the case. Now, there was this case in I think Daily Trust TV did the story. The case of this young girl who was killed in Sokoto, Deborah Samuel. Now, what happened was this. There were two young men who were arrested as suspects. The police went to court to say these guys were suspects, so they were taken to prison, detained. But if you read why those young men were released, you now know how unserious. I'm using the word careless anyway. Policemen can be. The case was called the first time, the prosecutor was not there. Called the second time, the prosecutor was not there. Called the third time, the prosecutor was not there. I think maybe the fourth time, that was in January. Then the judge said, what's up? This is a serious matter. It's the state versus, So why should the police not come? Throughout, the judge now said, okay, I'll have to allow them to go. People raise alarm.
But shouldn't the judge have used his power, to send a subpoena to have that prosecutor there?
Now, but each and every time the case was heard, definitely the police were aware that, look, because, these guys had lawyers, you understand? And they must have told the police, this case is coming up, and nobody will come. You see, so you don't know. That's why I always start from the police, because if the police don't do their job, if they don't do the right thing, it will be difficult for a judge to pass a judgment. That's number one. Then, as we know, most of our judges are overworked. You hear they have cases, hundreds of cases. And if you have hundreds of cases, because, the police did not do what they ought to do, indiscriminate arrest. When people are indiscriminate arrest from here, and overnight, you can arrest up to 30 persons. So some of them did not commit offense. All the cases to go to the judge. And then he's a human being. So if he has too many cases, he has to be shifting the cases. Say, well, this hearing cannot take place now. Let's give another date for it. And as long as the case is postponed, so long will these people remain in prison.
Doctor, let's talk about bail now, because majority of the people that were released from prison, it was said that the federal government and also some bodies were able to pay for those bail. We know that people go to prison for the most serious things. So some people are really poor and they cannot afford, in order to say they have family to help them push the case in order for it to go to trial quickly or to even get bail. And there is this word saying, you're not supposed to pay bail, police is your friend, things like that. So how do we manage?
Bail is free.
Bail is free, thank you. So how do we manage that kind of situation where someone is there on a story, because we know that a lot of people use hatred to create some situation. I mean, one of the example was a caretaker of a farmhouse who, whenever maybe the chicken dies, he carries them and go feed a widow with her children. And then the owner of the farmhouse is saying that he should leave those dead chickens for his fish, that he rears. So the situations like that, because of that power that this person had, he took this person to prison. And this man is someone that was barely surviving on the little salary that man was paying him. So situations like that come up and someone cannot afford bail. So how do we go out of that kind of situation?
Now, I think there must be a deliberate attempt to use what we call arbitration, in tackling some of these issues. For instance, this young man and, let me use the word, his master, had this dispute. Instead of this thing to be treated as maybe a criminal case, why don't you say, okay, let there be an arbitration kind of meeting. You say, okay, what did he do? Okay, he did this, okay. Now you work for another month, you are not going to collect salary.
Settlement.
Yes, out of court settlement. You see, this will help, But what I see is that people want to say, I will deal with you. When they say I will deal with you, they are saying so because they have some policemen, that they can hand you over to, who will torture you. And we have this anti-torture law in Nigeria, which are not being obeyed. So there has to be alternative dispute resolution mechanisms, at that lower level. From our own experience at the foundation, when we want to help any inmates, we just go to the correctional centers. Okay, want to have a list of all those who have fines, not those who have killed human beings, not those who have committed serious crimes. Want to have their list. How many of them? We may have a list of 50. That's okay. This is how much you want to spend. But you'll be shocked. Some persons have a fine of 8,000. Some have a fine of 5,000. And that will keep them in prison for 4 or 5 months. Some, maybe at most, 80,000. So by the time you calculate it, one is 8,000, 10,000, 15,000, 20,000, 100,000. You can set as many as 25 persons free with less than 1 million. You understand? So why won't the government put in place, say, okay, if anybody, is in prison, or if anybody has so fine, there's this fund that you can use, because it's in Nigeria, can take money from this fund and pay.
Isn't it the whole idea? I heard the Minister of Interior talking about this. He said that anyone with a fine that is less than ₦1 million is entitled, well, I don't know whether to say entitled, but should be released, based on this decongestion program and all that. So, but I want you to give your assessment of the Presidential Committee on the Prison Decongestion. I know that there's a committee like that. In the past, last year, we had the Attorney General, Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, talks about 12,000 inmates released in 6 years under the former President Muhammadu Buhari's administration. How seriously are we taking this, really? What's your assessment of that committee?
Well, I think, like I told you earlier, the idea of decongesting our prisons didn't start with Buhari. As way back as the days of Yaradua, when Andwaka was minister, because I remember I did some stories around that. It has been there. But my own feeling is that if you look at the number of persons in prison, 12,000 from prison within a period of 8 years, like a drop in an ocean. Because maybe there's too much bureaucracy. You know, it's a very good idea that, look, this thing is happening, people are being released. But if the bureaucracy, you know, is so much, you know, then you are talking about the lives of human beings.
Why should we even be having, because it's like we are normalizing this now, why should we even be talking about prison decongestion as though it's supposed to be part of government's program or government, you know, policy? I mean, should anyone who isn't meant to be in the prison be in the prison in the first place?
You say, if you have the proper structure in place, you will have the proper strategies in place, the prison should not be congested. You understand? Prisons should not be congested. Because if we know that, look, the police do their work, I don't know, I keep harping on the police because they are the first level in the value chain. If the police do proper investigation, if the police are not used to punish people, you know, then the prisons will not be congested. Then if we now say, like you're talking about, if the government say, okay, if the fine is less than 1 million, the person should not be in prison. It will be a good, policy. And that means that those who are in charge, those who should monitor, you know, it should know that, oh, if this guy has less than, is fined for less than 1 million, let us find the other things for him to do. Maybe community service, you know, maybe some other thing. Take him to one ministry of something and say be sweeping here for 1 month or for 2 months. Instead of going to prison. No, there has to be an approach that will reduce the not, because you see, as every day you spend in prison diminishes your life. Because it's not about even age now, it's about even your mentality. You are dehumanized.
I mean, you cited an example when you started off about one of the inmates that Daily Trust Foundation secured the release of, who wasn't really excited. What could have been his experience, really? Is there any kind of arrangement for people who are traumatic, you know, some kind of, someone who pay attention to PTSD, is it PTDS?
This post-traumatic
stress disorder,
no, but you see, what we should know is that
and all that, traumatic rehabilitation, something.
Anyone in prison loses all his rights. You understand? If you are even if you are in police detention, if you are in prison, you don't have any right any longer. You understand? So if you don't have any right any longer, it means that you cannot claim anything. Even if you are not given food to eat, there's nothing you can do. If you are ill and you are not taken to hospital, you cannot say anything.
Doctor, you know, in developed countries,
those rights are not. I mean,
because what I have seen.
So, are you saying this as a matter of maybe indirectly, or maybe something that is not legitimate? Because your fundamental rights remain your rights even when you are in prison, isn't it?
Maybe right to life.
You have a right to life, isn't it? So, your health status is something that should be of concern. Your feeding, you know, and every other thing that concerns your well-being.
Yes.
And when you see developed countries, they bring counselors, they bring maybe teachers, experts in some places, just to teach you, to prepare you for in case if you are living, maybe when you get to the time you finish serving your sentence, when you're going out, you can be a bit, say, skilled in a part, in an aspect of that. So you went to these places. Is there anything like that in place?
No, when you talk about correctional centers, I went to some of them, some of the prisons I've been to. They are actually correctional activities. You see some sewing, you see some, doing what you call mason, civil engineering work, that is building, as to maybe mix cement, you know, and give to those who build. Some of them were laying blocks. I saw that. Some of them were making shoes, you know. Some of them, you know, binding books, things like that. I saw something like that in Mina prison. I saw some of those things in Kuje prison. Then I saw some in Lafia. You know, they were being taken to some skills. In fact, there was some material that were being used in that prison. Maybe the right word correctional centers means those correctional that were actually produced by the inmates.
Yes.
You know, all those things they take place. You know, but what my concern is that even when you are doing that, you know, and you know that you are restricted, you know that you know, you are mentally, I mean, humiliated. You know, you don't see.
But
maybe
the bottom line here is that your rights shouldn't be denied as a human being just because you are in a correctional facility. Whether you are convicted or not convicted, your rights, your fundamental human rights, shouldn't be denied.
Actually, the one that you lose mostly is your right to movement.
To movement, exactly.
You cannot move.
Exactly.
You cannot just leave the prison.
But any other thing should be.
Yeah, okay, you are giving some food to eat. Maybe not the ones you want to eat.
Okay, doctor.
Like you want to eat eba, you cannot say I want to eat eba. Things like that.
Let me have
you don't get to choose what to eat.
What Ayuba said, you know, about the fundamental rights. Now we've already established that there is abuse of power, you know, sometimes from the police, sometimes even from the correctional center officers, you know, oppressing these people. It doesn't matter if you're a hardcore criminal or if you're just there for something petty. There should be somebody, you know, that would stand up for you to say, no, you're not supposed to do this. And there is so much oppression in the center. So do you think that the government should create a body in order to be following up on these cases that sometimes it takes longer in order to go to trial, and other people are being put in prison for the most silly thing, while others it's like a vendetta where they go and even change someone's name entirely. The family cannot even reach that person because they don't know where the person is taken. They don't know what name is being registered. I witnessed firsthand how they've named someone another name in the book. So when you even call or reach out to the prison, they can't find that person. So should there be a body that would go and make sure, like once in a while, go and make sure that situations like this, oppressions like this, are not being done in correctional centers in Nigeria?
Anyway, I think, you see, there is enough system in place in the Ministry of Interior, maybe in the correctional centers to do some of these things. There's enough system. Because if you go to the correctional centers, you discover these are, you know, there are layers of responsibilities. So I'm thinking that if people who are given responsibilities are made to do their job, you know, and some of these things will not arise. But when you get there, you see guys, I mean, responsible people, you know, well educated, you know, I mean, many of them very good.
Yes,
social works people are not.
I think
so. We have all those things.
Yes,
there.
I think one of them is the legal aid.
Legal Aid Council
has that responsibility, even though, you know, part of the challenges that because I've had the chance to interview one of them, part of the challenges that they are dealing with is the issue of funding. You know, it's a major challenge. So when you don't have funding, it becomes very difficult to track and follow through with some of the inmates who are awaiting trial and so on. So in that breath, I can understand, you know, that challenge.
It's a really sad situation. I mean, there's still a lot that we have to talk about on this. And well, this is the much we can take for this discussion.
But
Thank you so much.
we're not letting Doctor go yet.
Indeed. He has to be with us. He would come back later to talk about some, you know, issues that are arising, review the papers with us. But thank you so much, Dr. Abba Theophilus, the director for, or program director rather, for the Daily Trust Foundation. Thank you so much for joining us this time. We'll